The British are coming. The British are coming. This was the call to action for the very earliest heroes of our nation. These were the colonial militiamen, in some cases also known as the Minutemen. The militias were the basis of the colonial army and one of the major reasons that we are a nation today. But often we only learn a very limited amount about these militias in history class. I myself am a strong supporter of our Second Amendment right to bear arms. This amendment talks about the maintaining of a well-regulated militia. I sought to figure out how this pertains to our right to bear arms if militias were not so prevalent in our nation. This spurred my research related to militias in the United States. Most people in my area are also strong supporters of the Second Amendment. With all these tragic mass shootings that are happening today, some politicians seek to infringe on this right in the amendment. Whether you are for or against these acts, it helps to understand the basis behind this part of the Constitution to support your argument, and an understanding of the militias that brought about the inclusion of this amendment can help. This speech will help you to make you more well-informed about militias in the United States. I will inform you of how militias first were instituted early in our country, how they participate in our war for independence, and how this history is relevant to our lives even today. So how did militias get started in the U.S.? The militias were first used in the U.S. during the French and Indian War. They were created to assist the British regulars in fighting the French when they were running low on forces. This situation was not ideal, though, since the regulars were much better trained and coordinated. While these militias were ineffective, this was the basis for militias once the Revolutionary War was over. Local militias continued after the war as a way for the colonists to protect themselves, since the British military presence was rather small. When the British started to move more troops in the colonies, local militias designated some of their men as Minutemen, men who would be ready at a moment's notice in the event of attack. These men became relevant for the first time in the hours before the battles of Lexington and Concord. According to History.com, the battles of Lexington and Concord were the start of the American Revolution were fought by the militias. These militias successfully pushed back the Redcoats. While not the most competent display of combat expertise, it was the first victory of the Revolutionary War for the colonists. During the Revolutionary War, the militia was a very important part of the colonial army. Since the colonial army was kind of a work in progress, General George Washington's force consisted of newly trained colonial regulars and many militiamen as well. They assisted the regulars in battle, as well as protecting their home front. The militia participated in a number of significant battles and served other roles in the Revolutionary War. According to HistoryIsFun.org, over 3,000 militiamen participated in the siege of Yorktown under the command of Governor Thomas Nelson. At the Battle of Camden, North Carolina, militiamen unfortunately fled when they faced British forces. Amherst militiamen claimed to have fought against Cornwallis under Marquis de Lafayette at the Battle of Green Springs as well. Militiamen also occasionally fought Indians on the frontier to prevent the army from having to fight a war on two fronts. While we don't have any militias in our country today, they still have a very relevant effect on our lives and rights as Americans. The amendment that states we have the right to maintain a well-regulated militia is the one that gives us our right to bear arms. Many people also think it was the amendment that brought about the creation of the National Guard. The idea that there should be an army to fight foreign threats, as well as to protect the home front, was greatly inspired by militias in early America. These are just some of the fascinating facts about militias in America. There's plenty more to learn. They are very important and a relevant part of our history that we should all learn as much about as we can. Militias are one of the reasons that our country is free today. They say that you learn history so that we do not repeat it. We learn about these brave men so that their stories of courage may imbue us with some of their ideas of a drive for freedom and independence. This freedom is something that we should all strive to maintain and make sure that we do not fall into the same tyranny that the men and women of these militias in early America